For the past 17 years, Karasuma Yuichi was a kid living a life completely void of modernism. Yuichi's father was teaching him their Uchiha Divine Wind style of swordplay, and Yuichi was at a point in his training when his father had nothing left to teach him. Yuichi's father orders him to leave the mountains and get a taste of city life, where he was supposed to meet up with the Ikarugas who could teach Yuichi some new martial arts at their family dojo. The Ikarigas were 4 sisters, namely Ibuki, Kagome, Chihaya, and Ayame, and these sisters were supposed to let Yuichi crash at their place with respect to the acquaintanceship between the 2 houses. Yuichi makes it to the city the next day, and from the get-go, he stands out in the crowd due to his weird samurai clothing. A rude guy even tries to hurt Yuichi physically, but he easily beats him up. Yuichi is arrested by the police for an act of violence in public, but the officers let him go soon after realizing that he's just naive and not a bad guy. Yuichi was supposed to meet with the Ikarigas, but he gets lost in a mall while navigating without even realizing it. Mr. Samurai comes across Ayame and Chihaya, and afterwards, he finds a thief running away with an old lady's handbag. Yuichi was a kind guy, so he chases the thief down and puts him to sleep so the police will have an easier time. Things were quite hectic in the city, and Yuichi starts feeling like this whole city life is not really up his alley, and that he should just go back to the mountains when he finds a random little girl who had gotten lost. The girl was Kagome Ikaruga, and without even knowing it, Yuichi offers to help the little one out. The cops get on Yuichi's tail again, but while he was returning Kagome to Ibuki, she catches onto a sword style and realizes that this must be the guy she was supposed to meet. Ibuki introduces herself to Yuichi later outside, and after it's settling down, she takes Yuichi back to the Ikaruga residence where he will be spending his upcoming days and probably dealing with whatever modern challenges this new life throws his way. Sudden change, the sisters had different opinions about letting a random guy stay at their place. The 4 were sort of holding a meeting in their backyard where Ayame was completely against letting this dude stay at the house. But Ibuki remarked that she had trust in him and hence the others had to comply as she was the oldest in the family. The next morning, Ibuki was cleaning the house when her trusting of Yuichi increased after seeing his elegant swordplay. Ibuki was getting along just fine with Yuichi, but a few misunderstandings put Yuichi in a bad place. Ibuki sends this dude flying from the roof, and he also ends up making Ayame mad. Yuichi receives some defeat from Ibuki before having breakfast, and while eating, he comes to know that the girls had gotten him enrolled in their school, so he is supposed to come alongside them. Yuichi was really grateful for all that the girls were doing, and his kind attitude gets them further confused about how to treat this guy. The rude guy who Yuichi defeated earlier also went to this school, and his name was Ryo Washizu. Washizu was sort of the cool guy at school, and seeing Yuichi enroll in his class kinda gets him feeling insecure. Yuichi's odd speech and clothing got him quite popular among the girls, and while he was having the time of his life, his liking over girls got Ibuki mad. Ibuki beats Yuichi again before scolding him, and while these two are busy, Washizu had a crush on Ibuki, and after assuming that Yuichi would steal her from him, he challenges Yuichi to a duel. A lot of students gather to watch this fight, and even though Yuichi was looking to have a fair equal fight, he soon realized that in real life, people outside of the mountains don't play by the same rules as he does. Yuichi snaps after Washizu pulls out his gauntlets, and he knocks Washizu out cold with a single kick. The duel was seen by Ayame as well, and it seemed to change her opinion of Yuichi. The first day of school goes fine for Yuichi, but as soon as he makes it back home, he catches a bad fever. Ibuki tells him to rest as she leaves to get some supplies, and seeing his condition, Ayame tries to make him a nice meal. Ayame hadn't cooked before, but she managed to put something together with the help of Kagome. While Ibuki was out, Yuichi comes to know that she isn't actually angry, but she ends up scolding her siblings and Yuichi since she finds herself responsible for them. This gets Yuichi to feel a bit bad for assuming that Ibuki is an angry woman, and after she gets back home, both of them laugh the misunderstanding off. Seeing Ibuki having fun with Yuichi makes Ayam kind of sad, and we get to see through a flashback how always being worse than Ibuki bothered Ayam throughout her life. Ayam was running back to her room in tears with her meal when she ends up stumbling, and the food falls out of the window. Luckily for her though, Yuichi was right beside her, and he easily gets a hold of the food, even appreciating the effort Ayam put in for him. After a little taste, Yuichi's praise puts a big smile on Ayam's face. And Yuichi's popularity seems to be on the rise when a couple more girls enter town looking for him. The two women were Tsubasa, Tsubame, and her subordinate Angela or Angie. Tsubasa was from the mountains just like Yuichi, and she had come to the city just for the sake of defeating Yuichi and reviving the Tsubame style of martial arts. Tsubasa enrolls in Yuichi's class to get close to him, but her school life doesn't go all that smoothly, courtesy of her introverted nature. Tsubasa's cuteness gets her surrounded by a lot of other students, and she almost gets overwhelmed by this much attention. The girl was having a hard time hanging in there when Yushi and Ibuki reach out to her, and she ends up befriending them. Tsubasa proceeds to enjoy her school life, and she even gets a crush on Washizu after a little while. Angie gets annoyed by this, and she tries to remind Tsubasa that they must defeat Yuichi in a duel as an unknown client was offering them a lot of money, which they could then use to revive their family's martial art. Tsubasa didn't have real motivation to be a martial artist and just wanted to live a normal life, so Angie had no choice but to force her. Angie goes further than she should have, and her actions lead to Basa to cry. Tsubasa felt really bad as Angie embarrassed her in front of Washizu, and she tells Angie that she hates both martial arts and her. Angie prefers to leave Tsubasa alone for the time being, and she runs over to the Ikaruga dojo so she can get the job done herself. Angie challenges Yuichi for a fight, but her reasoning gets our boy mad, and he makes Angie realize that trusting an unknown client to revive the Tsubame Benton style would never really work in the long run. Yuichi's reasoning somehow makes sense to Angie, and she leaves the dojo to meet Tsubasa outside where both of them apologize to each other. On the next day, Yuichi is out with Ibuki when they come across Tsubasa and Angie as they had gotten themselves real jobs in a restaurant so they can raise honest funds to revive the Tsubame Benton style. A little while later, Ibuki requests Yuichi to help her out in teaching her students Anime more about swordplay. Yuichi didn't know how to show his skills off, so he ended up deciding to duel Ibuki. The duel was for the students to watch and learn, but Yuichi starts enjoying finding Ibuki, and he gets in the zone a bit too much. Yuichi cats Ibuki's dress down during sparring, and that gets him and the students to receive some lessons. After training, Yuichi was hanging out in the backyard when Chihaya approached them and asked them to help her out with her manga. Chihaya was having a rough time with ideas, so she takes Yuichi to her room, wanting to interview him. Yuichi is impressed by Chihaya's dedication towards drawing manga, and Chihaya finds the moment fitting to tease Yuichi. Chihaya was just playing with Yuichi, trying to get a reaction out of him when Ibuki runs in on them and she gets mad at Yuichi's normal tendencies. Ibuki gets a bit embarrassed when Chihaya mentions how she argues with Yuichi as if they were a couple, but despite her reaction, she doesn't look like she was against the idea all that much. The next day, Yuichi was being chased around the house by Ibuki again when he ran into Kagome and broke her art project. Kagome starts crying, and after shutting Yuichi out of the house, Ibuki tells him to bring Chihaya's notebook to her when she was in her cram school. Yuichi happily agrees to make it up to Ibuki, but even after making it to the cram school, our samurai boy continues to get himself in trouble. After continuing to receive his usual shouting from women, Yuichi makes it to Chihaya, and while returning her notebook, Yuichi is really taken aback by Chihaya's dedication to her art. Yuichi was still in school after class was over, and as he was walking around, he came across 3 random guys who were laughing about them picking on Chihaya. Yuichi heads straight over to check out for himself when he finds Chihaya's drafts being torn apart. This was the first time Yuichi heard Chihaya crying, and he rushed over to teach those 3 boys a lesson. These guys were just spoiled brats who had nothing of interest in their lives, and they hated both Yuichi and Chihaya for being serious about something tangible. Yuichi defeats the three of them, and afterwards, Chihaya comes to an understanding with them while she is heading back home later.